So Keith, welcome to, the Road to Fright Fest. This is our series where we, delve into some of the films that are screening. So firstly, congratulations on The Haunted Forest being selected. How do you feel about, being selected and, the forthcoming screening?
I feel really excited. Yeah, this is exactly the kind of platform that we were hoping for the movie. It's a genre movie, and we were really hoping to get a top level genre festival. And so it was a huge win for us when we got selected. And any chance to go to London, I jump at the chance. I think like a lot of Americans, I still romanticize London a little bit. So so I'm thrilled, and I've been bragging about it to everyone, and I can't wait to be there.
And for those that haven't done the homework, how have you been pitching The Haunted Forest to people?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I try to let other people do the pitching, ideally, because I'm a little bit close to it. But we talk about it like it's a little bit like a ultra low budget version of Scream. You know, it's a bit of a throwback to yesteryear's slasher films. So the emphasis really isn't on gore. You know, there's a few gory moments, but the emphasis is more on character and suspense and that's my background too. My background is not particularly in horror movies. I've been making movies for 20 years, and most of them are kind of character-driven dramedies of one kind or another. So the stuff that I'm good at is dialogue and character interaction and story structure. And so those are the things we really emphasize. But it's got a few scares in there too. I think it's a good balance of humor, romance, terror, and a fourth thing that I will not reveal.
And like a lot of your, your previous work is sort of more drama based. What was it about, this story and horror that made you kind of want to pivot in that direction?
Well, I think I've been looking for an opportunity to pivot because I've had a few little brush ups against the horror community and I'm just so struck by the incredible passion that people have for the genre. I mean, it's absolutely infectious. Actually, there's a little bit of a story behind this. So the film House of the Devil by Ty West was shot in my hometown, like just down the road from where I live in Connecticut. This little Victorian mansion, this tiny, tiny town. And that was quite a low budget film, I believe. But there's a guy who does screenings around the country, my country, the US. He does screenings around the country of movies screened where they were shot. So he will travel to the place where the movie was shot. What's it called? On-site cinema, I think. So he screened House of the Devil on the lawn of the house, and we got to tour the house. And the only reason I was there is because it was 2 minutes down the road. I was living with my brother at the time. He was curious to check it out. We checked it out. So we're not there as fans of the movie. We hadn't seen the movie, right? We were there to see it for the first time. But it was so amazing to be surrounded by people who had traveled to be there and who loved this movie and who were in, and for, for them, it was almost this religious experience. And I was just so struck by how welcoming they were because we were the outsiders. We didn't know the film. We didn't really know what we were getting into. And they were so kind and they were so sweet. And it made me realize just how, I don't know, how amazing that community is. And so that was an initial inspiration point. I'm sorry if this is a long answer, but then the other piece of it was the location. You know, this whole film was inspired by this real place, Markov's Haunted Forest, which is a, it's a haunted trail slash theme park extravaganza every October in the woods in Maryland, and it's run by cousins of mine on my dad's side. So again, my brother and I were down there years and years ago, and just immediately struck by how big, how elaborate, how intricate, how detailed this place is, and the passionate community surrounding that. And so we immediately thought we got to make a movie here, and that became the basis for the film. I mean, all these locations are real locations. We didn't have to build anything. We really just shot what was available to, and they were incredibly generous to us. You know, they let us come in, they let us use their spaces, not just their spaces, but their staff and their expertise. And really, they were a partner on the film. We made the film together. So that became, I mean, that became maybe the most meaningful aspect of it was sort of our film community and their haunt community getting to merge into one for a few weeks in November of when was that? Whatever year that was. Uh, it all blurs together. Yeah, but so those, I guess those, yeah, those were the two main things that came together. My love for the horror community and then my love for that particular place.
Mm. And I think that is something I think so often there's this stigma towards, horror fans for the sorts of content that they're consuming, they must be like weird and, horrible to be around, but actually, when you sit down and talk to them, they're some of the, the nicest, happiest, friendliest people. Do you think that there is an argument for maybe, the sorts of stuff, the sorts of programming that they're watching is like a catharsis, and that's, they're kind of getting all of that darkness out when they're watching the film, which then
Yeah, that
enables
might
them
be
to
it.
be.
Yeah, to be honest, I find it puzzling and mysterious a little bit. I mean, it's not that I expect someone who likes dark movies to be, sadistic or cruel or anything,
But I think
but
there are people that do think that way.
sure, yeah. And well, look, I'll be honest, there are horror movies that make me uncomfortable in terms of the actual content. There are horror movies that do strike me as sort of, nihilistic, and that can be off-putting. But yeah, you're right. As individuals, horror fans are almost always the nicest people you've ever met. And I don't really understand why. Uh, yeah, maybe they get out all their aggression in a fictional context. Maybe they're sort of compensating for the perception, right? People expect them to be dark, and so they're trying to sort of counteract that expectation. I heard someone put it once. This is not directly related to horror films, but someone told me that hippies are mean people who dress like nice people, and goths are nice people who dress like mean people. And I think there might be a grain of truth to that. But I don't know. It's interesting. I think it has something to do with just passion. Like if you're a fan of something in a completely unabashed way, if you love something that deeply, I think that gives you a really positive orientation to the world and to other people. I think there's something just incredibly healthy about having that much love for something.
Mm. And as you say, the story takes place within the setting of a scare attraction. What was it particularly about the scare attraction itself that appealed to you and kind of became the springboard for the story? Because as you say, it's all based around this kind of one location.
Yeah. I mean, just visually, it's an absolute feast. And it's really not one location because each scene on the trail is its, and we used a tiny fraction of what's available. I want to say we shot at like six different scenes along the trail. And, we were doing maybe a fifth of what they have available. It's just so much to it. And each one is so rich and so fully realized and so invented. And then I guess I found myself thinking about the movie Adventureland. That idea of like a community that exists for a really short space of time with a really specific set of rules and expectations. So we often talk about the movie as Adventureland meets Scream, right? Because it has this coming of age aspect, and let's all go to camp together and let's all bond with each other, and we're becoming the best of friends. And then of course you get murdered in the woods. So as will happen. Yeah, I think the again the real place just has so much heart and soul and texture and history. It's impossible not to be inspired by it. And we're always, filmmakers are always looking for especially low budget independent filmmakers, what is already there, what is already real. You could imagine a whole world and then try to build it, but you're really stacking the deck against yourself. Whereas if you start from a world that exists and then build out from there, you're kind of putting yourself in a really good position.
And I guess, like you say, that must help with the writing process instead of, with another film where you might be writing a specific location, but you've never seen that location, and then you have to try and find that location, and then maybe you then have to try and retrofit the location you find into the script. When you say it is something that is already there, you kind of know where you can go, the parameters, what is and isn't feasible. So that must have made the writing process a lot easier.
Yeah, although when I was writing it, I was not physically there, and so I was trying to reconstruct it from memory. There were some translation issues in that process, but we got there. We got there. There were little rewrites that happened along the way, and occasionally a scene would be sort of conceived in one part of the trail and then moved to another part of the trail for whatever logistical reason. So there was definitely a back and forth with it. But yeah, it's very, very true that I think it's normal to write without a location in mind. A lot of people will write without a location in mind. And you think you're writing something really generic and obvious. You're like a house, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out that house that you have in your mind is way more specific than you thought it was. And then you go out looking at houses and none of them is right. And you're like, God, this one might work. But it's odd how I think you can fool yourself into thinking that you're writing something accessible to you, something available, and then realize actually this that hallway isn't laid out the way I want that hallway to be laid out. So either I have to reimagine that scene, or it has to be a different house.
Mm, yeah, definitely. I think I might say this is Grayson's first feature film lead role, and as Zach, he's in pretty much every scene in the film. What was it about him that made you confident that this was the talent to hold everything together?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, Grayson's amazing. I mean, the short answer, his charisma just leaps off the screen, and that was evident in the audition room. I mean, I definitely, if I could be transparent, I had doubts about his ability to carry a movie just because he was sort of inexperienced, like at least at this style of performance. And I, kind of put him through the ringer a little bit. There was definitely an audition and there was a callback and then there was a long phone conversation. And I wanted to make sure that we were on the same page about kind of about the scale of the undertaking, really, because playing the lead in a feature, it's not like being another cast member. You really have to carry the whole thing, and it's not just about your talent or your acting, but it's also being there every day and being, the sort of one of the key partners. Because when I'm on set, it's like the people I interact with the most are the cinematographer and the lead actor. Those are the people. Every single scene is those two people and me, and so that has to be a good team. But he just killed it when he got onto set. I mean, he was so committed. He was so game. We put him into some pretty uncomfortable situations and even arguably slightly risky situations, and he was just all up for it. He was just 100% committed and never complained. And, he just gave it his all night after night in the Maryland woods in the freezing cold, always cheerful, always smiling. And the performance, I mean, you've seen it. The performance is just, it's so magnetic. It's so captivating. I think we had options when we were casting that felt safer, that felt like a more seasoned actor, right, who could certainly pull it off. But in my head, I was going, well, do you want safe or do you want someone who takes the movie to the next level? And we absolutely went for the latter, and it paid off.
I mean, you mentioned night shoots, and a lot of this film is set at night, as one would expect from a horror film set at a Halloween scare attraction. How was the shoot?
It was amazing. It was completely exhausting. It was completely all-consuming. Most of us were living together. We were staying with my cousins. We were sharing a big house together, and we would shoot. Yeah, most of our shoots we would show up at 4 p.m. and we would shoot until 4 a.m. or maybe our call time was 5 and we would shoot until 5 in the morning. I was getting very little sleep because I don't sleep in the mornings anymore. So literally sometimes I would crawl into bed at 6 and wake up at 8, and that was my sleep for the night. So it was so draining, but it was also incredible. I very, very rarely have had a group of people come together so wholeheartedly on a project. Not just the film team, but the whole the haunt staff all around us. And there's that incredible feeling. I mean, the thing that I love most about filmmaking is that sense of camaraderie, right? We're all in this together and we're all gonna make this happen together. And on some sets, it's there, but it could be subtle or muted. And on other sets, it just comes to the fore every day. And this was one of those where everyone was just I mean, I'll never forget standing there in the woods. I look over. We're like trying to stay warm by a trash can fire. You know what I mean? Like it's cold in the woods in Maryland in November, and I look over at EJ Roeder, who's got a knife. Sorry, spoiler alert. She's got a knife sticking out of her neck, glued to her neck for hours, and just can't imagine how uncomfortable that is. I look over at her and she's just grinning. She's just grinning from ear to ear. And that's the kind of person I want to make movies with, is someone who's just excited to be there, even when it's hard, even when it stinks. There were moments when I wanted to pack it in for the night, when I was too tired, and the crew would be like, "No, man, we're here. Let's get one more shot. No, let's finish it up. Let's get that shot you might not need, that shot that might feel too much. Let's get it. Let's go for it." And I was so grateful afterward that they would kind of push me on that stuff.
You know, and I think again that's something about particularly sort of low budget filmmaking is everybody does chip in, and it does seem to be a community. And I guess I don't know if obviously you said you're coming to Fright Fest, but a lot of the filmmakers come, and then there's a whole other community that you're likely to form there. Are you looking forward to kind of, making connections with some of the other filmmakers that are coming?
Absolutely. I've heard a rumor that there are a couple of good pubs that are near the screening venues. And I've heard a rumor that if you go to one of those pubs and you hang out, you will meet everyone at the festival. And I'm really excited about that. My producers, Cassie and Mashka, they're coming into town as well. And I think we're going to be there for most of the week, just hanging out and really excited to meet people and see a little bit of London and see people's movies.
And obviously at the moment, Fright Fest attendees, they're buying tickets, they're figuring out their schedule, what film they're going to watch when. Why do you hope that they take a chance on The Haunted Forest?
I mean, I think it's a film. I hope it's different from the sort of standard offering. I like to think of it as a movie that has everything, right? So it's not necessarily for your hardcore horror aficionado. Like that person hopefully will enjoy it, but also maybe your mom would enjoy it. Maybe your uncle would enjoy it. I mean, it's like it has heart, it has character, it has some thematic depth, it has some humor. So I like to think of it as a movie that's kind of hitting all the buttons. I'm not to say it's for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone, but I don't know. It's fun. It's a ride. Um, it's entertainment. I think if you like, the original Halloween, or if you like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that kind of movie, I think this is a solid choice.
Well, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with the screening.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure talking to you.